All right, so today we are doing something different than we normally do in that today I'm actually interviewing experts as opposed to being the one that's coaching the guests. So, you know what? I'm not going to introduce my guests because it's people that I follow on Facebook. It's people that I respect. So I want to do them the justice and let them introduce the magnificence that we're going to go through. So take it away, guys.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm really excited for this conversation. I believe that power meets power. And so I'm excited about what gets revealed and what we're diving into and what we can share for your audience. So my name is Holly Ogsted, and this is my incredible partner,
Chad Holly.
And we work with coaches and really helping them create, really coaches who are called to make a difference in the world, to create their programs, attract their ideal clients to them, and do this in a way that's really aligned to who they are at a soul level. We're very being in performance without the hustle. We're very into following your soul path and who you really are. There's a lot of stuff out there, so really showing up authentically and living in your purpose. We are.
Love it. Love it. And the reason that I wanted you guys on and that I wanted to do this differently than I normally do is from what I've read about you and from what I've followed online, you guys have a very interesting background with regards to how you got into this, right? Like definitely that kind of like dark before the light type of story that I know about you. So I'd love to just kind of start off there because I think it is a very exciting journey to go from like the bottom to the top, but without all the glitz glam and like Instagram, everything's perfect type of thing. So
yeah, that wasn't our story.
Well, so we can go back and touch on some older stuff, but I'll start from 2017. 2017, we're like living with my mom. We had just started dating. We started an agency, started doing ads, had some success, said, you know what, we're going to go do the laptop lifestyle, went to go nomadic, ran out of money, called our accountant, said, hey, we're out of money. She said, come live with me. And she kicked her grandson to the couch. We took his room. Think of 13-year-old stinky boy bedroom. And so we moved in there, and we're just hustling our face off, getting basically no results for a while. We go to an event that basically was all about integrity, not being morality, but being your word. And after 3 days of that, it would just completely seeped into every hole of our body. And I remember coming back, and one of us was creating a list of all the places that you're out of integrity. So we're making a list, getting in communication, saying, hey, we don't have any money, but when we do, we'll be in communication to set up a payment plan to get this taken care of. And
it was so powerful. We still do that with our clients. So it's one of the first things we have them do is create an integrity list. Like that's how big it has been in our life.
Yep. So we came out of that and started getting momentum, landing a $2,000 client, $3,000 client, then had somebody call from an event, said, hey, I got somebody here. Could you do their funnel? It's like this, this, and this for $12,000. I don't know, man. Maybe. And then I got another $10,000 funnel. So we ended up doing like $40,000 a funnel for basically nothing. And so I could keep selling all day long, but we didn't quite have the team management and being able to.
We didn't have the leadership.
We didn't have the leadership. And so I'm selling, she's delivering, and I remember her, and she's working a job that she committed to before where she was doing sales. And so it's like delivery, funnel creation plus sales. And then I remember her leaning against a wall and just sliding down the wall and then started convulsing. Didn't know what the hell happened. So we called 911. And when we went there, they basically said, you guys look like drug addicts and you're just out here for drugs. And gave us like basically sent us on our way. And we're like, you know what, we don't want to do that anymore. So we vowed to figure out what was going on holistically. And we had money. So we're like, you know what, we're going to go. And we didn't know like how bad this was or what was it. So we were like, screw it. We're going to go nomadic again, go live on the beach this time. And just jump from Airbnb resort back and forth while trying to figure out holistically how to heal from seizures and burnout and all of this.
I don't recommend that, by the way. That is not part of the
Highly
recommendation.
unrecommended.
Yeah, I think the path towards whatever success you want, yeah, should not be paved with burnout. So yeah, I get it.
So then we got invited to sponsor an event in San Diego. We went out there, and the whole gist of the event was do what you love in the service of people that love what you do. Completely changed our life. So one of the reasons Holly was so burnt out is that she was doing funnels for people that we didn't love to work with. It was just, we were just whoever wanted to throw money at us. We were whores. We would just throw money at us, and we would do project whores. And I remember, we had 2 clients that showed up to that event. One was a publicist, very out for herself, very selfish, cool, great person, but just very out for making money for herself. The other one was a neural performance coach, very out for impact, very out for making a difference. And I remember we went, do what you love in the service people love what we do. We want more of that. And we're like, how can we work with coaches that are out to make an impact, that are called to make a deep impact, that are making a huge impact? And how can we work with them?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said. Like, and I just had this conversation with a client today, is like, you get to love your business. In fact, like, I recommend it. I had this vision and this dream. We actually started online back in 2013. So that was like a whole other world. And, you start on this vision, and then you become, don't ever become a project whore. Just get clients just because you need clients, you need the money. You end up resenting your business and hating it. And that is the worst thing in the world, is to have this vision and dream and create a job from it. Right? Like it really threw things. Yeah, it really threw things.
I'd love to ask you guys more about, because you mentioned the integrity piece, like that was like a big part of not just your journey into getting here, but it's something you do with clients. So can you talk a little bit more about, okay, so what do you actually mean with regards to integrity?
I'm like, jinx. So integrity is really like your source of power. It's doing what you say you're going to do. When you put your word to something, if you think of integrity, like you're living your life, it's this wheel of life, right? And every time you put your word to something, or you make some sort of promise, you create a spoke in that wheel. And that spoke, the more spokes you have, the more powerful the wheel is going to be, the more smoothly things are going to run. And when you take, and it's impossible to be your word all the, you have family, business, clients, friends, all of the things. So you tell your kid, I'm going to read a book, and then it completely slips your mind, and then you don't do it. Well, you just lost a spoke in your wheel. You tell your clients, or you show up late, and your clients, you don't communicate. That's another spoke out of your wheel. You don't pay a bill. That's another spoke. And you start losing these spokes anytime you're not your word. And pretty soon the path gets very bumpy, right?
Oh, there's an important point there. I don't think we've ever really dived into this, is that people, they like try to play it safe in life. They don't put their word to anything, or they're just wobbly. And so they end up having no spokes in their wheel. And so it's still wobbly.
Motionless.
There's you're not getting anywhere.
You have a flat tire.
So powerful people are putting their word to everything, to lots of things, but then honoring and being their word in those places. That's what creates that powerful wheel that moves forward. Because it's like the performers, and this is like, if you look at like 7, 8 figure, 9 figure, whatever entrepreneurs, they're putting their word to things constantly, but they're managing and being able to follow through and be able to fulfill on those promises.
And if you're not, it's just being in communication. Like, you can't always be your word, but you can always honor it and be in communication with the other person.
Yep.
So that's what we talk about in the conversation of integrity.
Got it. And I mean, I love that when I talk about it. So let's just say with my clients, that often comes up with self-sabotage, right? Like I say all the things that I'm going to do, and then I don't actually do it. So on the surface, it looks like self-sabotage, but oftentimes they will have the best of intentions to actually do it. Like I want to be the type of person that actually wants to build that self-trust so that like my nervous system can be okay, so that emotionally I can feel safe to like do the thing. And sometimes even with the best of intentions, there's something underneath the surface that kind of gets them to not be able to do it. So I'm just curious, like, is that something you run into with the work that you do? And how do you handle it if it does?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like when you constantly put your word to things and then break it, it breaks the self-trust. And when you don't have self-trust, you can't take powerful actions.
Yeah, and there's totally trauma and unconscious programming and all of that stuff. And like I feel like that could be the whole conversation of rewiring the nervous system and healing those past stories, because they're all stories, right? So being able to recognize them and clear them out of your nervous system and your subconscious and do the whole reprogramming is ultimately a big part of the process as well.
Yeah, 110%. I definitely agree. So yeah, we don't have to dive into like the fullest extent
No,
of that. I'm okay to keep it towards like the marketing bit or the sales bit, because I do have some questions.
It's all part of the right? Everyone wants the tactics and the strategies, but if you don't include this stuff in there, it's not going to matter. You won't implement them. So I'm all for it. Anywhere you want to go, here.
Perfect. So yeah, well, as I was gonna say, even if you do implement it without this piece, that's when you get the burnout, right? Like that's what everything's like a push energy, and then you just burn yourself out with it. So yeah, it's two sides of the same coin. So okay, I guess there are a few questions that I had prepared for you guys ahead of time, because I know they come up in different ways, even in the work that I do. So taking this like esoteric nature of coaching, right? Like even the trauma informed stuff that we just talked about, repatting the nervous system, all of that can be applied in so many different ways. It's like one of the things that has come up with both in my past and, you know, with people that I tend to work with around this other stuff. But it's like, how do I package this esoteric thing that I know is an expression of like who I am into this like templated like result that's supposed to sell people on this thing? So how do you guys navigate?
Taking the 5D and condensing it into the 3D, it's quite the skill. And it's actually funny that you said that. We've really been working on that all day. Do you want to answer that?
Yes, I got that. So it's like really about all of these 5D things have real world results that they get, right? So it's like there might be a modality that's in the 5D or 4D or whatever, right? But it creates real world things. There's real world problems that these 5D things solve. We just now have to get really clear on what those are, so then we can communicate it in a way that it comes out where the client is getting something that is a real world result. And this is the thing is like, it really matters that it's in one of the three main ones, right? In creating wealth and money, creating health, even that could be mental health, and or relationships. And like getting really clear on which one you're in, ideally, and picking one and really focusing in on the real world results that you get in those things, even if you're using a 5D thing. Because it's like people will, when they have tons of freaking extra money, people will spend money on like airy fairy stuff that doesn't really ground it in the real world and like isn't.
That would be so cool to do that one day. Oh, you know what? I have a couple bucks. I'm gonna go ahead and join this program. I've been looking at it for a while.
Yeah, and like maybe on around $1,000, $500, something like that, might be able to invest into that. But to invest real money into a program, it needs a real result in one of those three areas.
So one of the things that I've observed in the past, again, both in myself and in other containers that have taught this stuff, it's like people will hear that, like coaches will hear that and intellectually be like, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. And it almost requires like a complete rewiring of your brain to like think in those ways. It's this weird phenomenon of like, in the context of the client in front of me, I know exactly how to make that translation. But then in the context of going broad and like to an audience, it's like I remember when I was going through it, I reported as like, I just feel like I lose like 80 IQ points. I'm just like, I just go blank and like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I'm just curious, what is your experience dealing with that and or moving through that?
Yeah, that's the important thing. And I'll let Holly jump in because we're like jumping at the bit of this, but it's like, when you can market to that one person and speak to that one person, just speak to that one person. And there's a bunch of those one people out there. And it's like, just show up for that person, and other people will show up with the exact same things, with the exact same problems that you can solve. And we're just helping that one person, but then all these other people show up.
Yeah. And so for me, that was literally one of the reasons why I started diving into more certifications on like the performance and the energetics level, to bring the 5D into the 3D and connect, at a subconscious level of like, okay, what is that soul mission that you have? What are those gifts that you have? It's like sometimes even just dumping them all out on a piece of paper and writing them out, where they're not in your head, but they're now on a piece of paper. And you can kind of like, oh, okay, this goes with this. I kind of refer to this as a lot. I seem to be like that conspiracy guy, like that meme where I'm like, once you can of like, oh, well, like let's use, Reiki and energetic work is kind of like a esoteric like piece. How could you, if you're passionate about health and people are wanting the results on the health side, like it's connecting them. And you may feel like, I feel like this is the biggest struggle, is coaches like getting on the surface level is not how we're wired as coaches. Like we're ready to go deep and go deep fast. But people who don't know us are like, whoa, I am not ready for that conversation yet. Like, I don't even know how you can help me. So we get to be authentic in our, it's such a dance, like be authentic in our marketing, and also understand in all aspects of what that person is going through in their life and speaking to it. As actually, like I became a breathwork practitioner and soma breath because it does a lot of subconscious rewiring, and also a process called cellular alignment where we can literally align the nervous system and go into the subconscious and start putting these out and getting the answers for themselves. Because I feel like that's not something you can like go tell someone to do it this way. It's like a discovery within themselves is much more powerful. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I have done this, is like I want people to go within themselves, get it out of their brain, because thoughts and stuff can be useful for about 5 seconds. You got to get it out, get it out of there before it becomes destructive, and then start mapping things out on paper, as well as doing that reprogramming.
Yeah, I think it's super helpful. And I guess I'll just reflect back to you what I'm hearing, and then you can comment and add to it, right? I think coaches in general will get, because like we go deep, and then there's like this spectrum of things we can go deep on, right? It's like mile wide and a mile deep.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I go out and I say this thing, and it's not like, it's just like one inkling of that whole mile wide, mile deep, then it feels in some ways like incorrect. And I think when coaches go out into the marketplace and they, get coaching for this type of thing, that there's almost like the school-like pressure of like, okay, like this is like a math problem, and if you don't do it right in this way, then like it's going to be impossible for you to actually like do this thing. So there's this like weird dance between, I got to get the template right, and then sometimes I get the template right, but then the template doesn't feel authentically like who I am. So then we'll often internalize it as shame, and that's usually when I start working with somebody like, okay, well, this isn't actually shameful, you're just not being honest with what you want. And then we kind of go back full circle. So I'm just curious, it's not really even a question, I guess, to just comment or add to that, because I'm sure it's a cycle you see quite often.
Yeah, so I think like it's funny, I was just talking to my client around this, like the energetics of how you move. And so if you're always trying to get something right and follow a template or a formula of someone else, most likely it is not going to work. Like, so you can, so for us, it's like sharing the experience and the knowledge that we've had being in this business for so long, but it's also, that's why I always want them to create it. Like, how can we get so centered and connect with your subconscious and at a soul level and create, like, I would rather create the space for them to have like a flow and let them create it so that doesn't happen, and then add in like, okay, so this is what I've seen could work really well for that, and coach them through that. Because I think it's really damaging of, coaches when they have this calling and they feel this within their soul to go out and do this work, and then they hire someone and they're like, no, this is wrong, you have to do it that way, or like, this is my way and this is the way, and if it's not this way then it's wrong. And then people start questioning themselves, and then that's not the work that you do. We got to go send them to you to go help them heal from all of the damage. And I think it's so important to create. It's going to work better when you are in the energy and the momentum of like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this. This is going to be fire. I love this. Like, I'm so excited for this. This is awesome. Like, your whole way of being and how you show up changes, rather than like okay, did I do this right? Is this okay? Okay, I'm going to post this post. I hope it works. This is what they said I was going to do. And I was going to, like, it's a totally different energy. So I am all for coaches, like, download the thing, like, put it out on paper, get really pumped and excited about what you're doing. If you are not, like, if you don't have that energy in there and there's either any shame or doubt, like, stop the launch. What do you got to do to go absolutely love it and be on fire for it? Because that's ultimately what's going to get the results more than the strategy and the tactics.
So I guess what I'm hearing is, like, how do I make marketing as fun as the coaching?
Yeah. So we created a whole, like, impact marketing. It's like, how can you create this impact through your marketing so that you love showing up? You love, like, it doesn't, as soon as you put the word marketing and sales, people have a meaning behind what marketing and sales, especially coaches have this meaning of, like, marketing and sales. Oh, I hate marketing. Oh, I'm no good at sales. I got to sell people and then be pushy. Well, right there, that's just going to cut the energy off of your success and what you're doing. So, like, how can you use your marketing to be impactful to other people? Because that's really your passion. How can you use sales as an experience for enrollment and transformation in the other person, and do, like, a complete rewiring of what those words even mean? Because the energetics behind it is going to be a lot more successful.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that moment of, like, okay, so I have this, like, download, like, I'm inspired by something that I want to share. I put it down on paper, and then this inner dissonance or conflict comes along. Like, is this the right thing? Because it doesn't follow, like, this, like, template of what, this direct copy thing should be like. Or, like, okay, well, if I just express with, like, me, then I don't know if that's actually going to move somebody to, like, buy. So how do you reconcile those inner stories, those inner emotions that pop up, and really add a lot of friction and distortion to this process? Because I think every one of us would like to get to that point where it's like, man, I just love coaching. I would do it all the time. And then I also love marketing equally as much as that. So I guess it's like, how do you bridge the gap between, this is something that I want, but every time I sit down, I have this negative experience. So how do you normally work with clients to bridge that gap?
So I use cellular alignment. Like, that has been the most powerful. It's like a somatic alignment process that we just take out. So to be unstoppable is ultimately, you have your skills plus the work and the focus, and all of the resistance, like, we refer to them as allergies and addictions. You either have an allergy to success or an allergy to what it is that you want, or you have an addiction, which is, it could be stress, it could be fear, it could be chaos, it could be, like, self-doubt. Like, those are just addictions that are caught in our nervous system. So what this process does is, we literally, it's like a somatic exercise where we find them in our body, we acknowledge them, we connect them with meridian points in the nervous system, and rewire them to take the charge out of it. So that way that you can be clear and you can just do the thing, and you don't have to let all of that stop you. So that's what we personally do. Again, I saw this a lot, and it was something I'm like, I just, how do I help people get through all of this stuff? And then when I found this technique, I'm like, this right here, I will go ahead and get certified and do whatever I need to do so that I can help my clients get through all of that resistance of actually showing up and doing the thing and loving what they do. Because that is, it stops people. You're called to be a coach. Nothing should stop you. You're fully equipped with everything inside of you to just go do the thing. And then also, without that process, it's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And sometimes trailing down that of, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, well, nobody buys. Okay, well, what's the worst thing that could happen from that? And, like, you kind of trail down. Like, so for us, I did this process. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Worst thing that could happen, we could lose our house. We go live with his mom. Like, that would suck, but can I have an acceptance of that? And then as soon as I'm like, yeah, because then we would just, launch something else, go get back up, do it again, learn the lessons we need to do, and build ourselves back up. Oh, I guess it's not actually that bad. And go do the thing.
Minimize the perceived threat so
Yeah.
that it's actually easier to do the thing. Yeah, 110%. So Anything else on that topic? 'Cause I have a few other questions, but anything else on that topic that you guys feel like I haven't asked you that you think is relevant here?
No, I think you nailed it.
Okay, perfect. So let me just see here. One of the things that oftentimes, like this was one of the things that happened even when I had my fitness studio, is like I would be doing everything right in accordance to a lot of the check marks or like these, like I would literally, I was running ads at that time locally to bring people into our weight loss programs. And I would get people like agencies to be like, look at my numbers just to see, okay, is there something I'm doing wrong? Like essentially like do an audit so I should hire. And like, no, actually this all looks pretty good. But I was losing a lot of money on like the back end. Right. And this was a business model thing. This was my own, like I was trying to prove that I could be successful in all the other stuff. So I understand in terms of my own history of like why that happened. But I'll oftentimes hear other coaches say, well, like I'm doing everything right, but I'm not getting the results, right? Like, is it me? Is it something else? So how do you guys navigate that? And it might be a similar question to even the previous ones, but I'm just curious if there's anything to add to that piece.
Yeah, so I think this is something we got from our friend and our coach, Alex Sharfin. He has something called the 5 core functions. And so it's like, if you look at doing everything right, you got like this giant blob of a business, right? It's really not, it's really 5 different things that we got to be doing right. And so we need to be 5-ish, right? There's probably more in there, but there's like attracting people and like getting leads, right? So we need to be able to get leads, like new people in the door. We need to be able to nurture and build relationship with those people. We need a system really around that. Then we need a sales process that brings people through, and our beliefs is like be able to have them sell us instead of us sell them, so that they're fully enrolled in asking us, what's the thing that you're offering. And then 5 being, the client delivery and really having people get amazing results. When people get amazing results, they stick around. And then that's the next one is like really the retention and resell and upsell. So it's really looking at which part of your business is broken and which part is working, acknowledging that it is working, and then being able to focus on what is broken. Like your business will never be 100% in all of those areas. It's a freaking game of whack-a-mole. And it's like, as soon as you get your lead gen, then your lead nurture is going to suck. And as soon as you get that lead nurture down, your sales process is going to go down because to handle as many calls, your people follow up is going to be not as good because you're not going to have the resources. And then when you get the sales really dialed in, then your retention and them like delivery is going to be an issue because you're going to have so many clients. People are going to be hiding, and you're going to have to freaking child protective services to come like get them out of their hole, and like you can't really do that when you have a bunch of clients and so on and so forth.
So then you need systems. So yeah, so I think there's an acceptance there of like your business is always going to be broken. It's just finding which areas are broken at the moment and need you. And with that, back to that, like the allergies and addictions is if you're doing all of the right things. And so let's just kind of I like to put in visuals for people. So if you are allergic, and these are total unconscious stories of things that could have happened to you throughout your whole life. Your Body Keeps Score, right? It's a great book. If you're allergic to flowers, you're going to stay away from flowers. If you have any kind of story around success or, what it means to make $30,000 a month or any of those things, even if they're unconscious, if consciously you're like, no, give me the money. Like, that sounds great. I would love to have $30,000 a month. But if your inside is like you're going to actually push that away energetically. And then the same goes for like the addiction. So, addiction, we can think of the most normal things of addiction of like alcohol, drugs, or whatever. It's like, I'm just going to do whatever I can to keep the cycle going. Well, this is a very unconscious thing. So if you are, if you find yourself in repetitive cycles of self-doubt, of self-sabotage, of, those are the two, that's fine. There's those two. Then what's going to happen is you're going to start like you unconsciously, you're not like, oh man, give me that self-sabotage, man, I just need to feed it. And our body is a really remarkable thing that happens. Like, our body is amazing. So it goes back to knowing where the bottlenecks are. And we're going to go 3D and 5D. That's kind of how we roll. Knowing where the bottlenecks are in your business, doing all of the things. Do you have the skills that are necessary in that area?
Mhm.
Are you putting in the work? Are you doing, like, having the focus? And if you are, there's probably something underneath that you get to heal and clear and reprogram within yourself.
Yeah, it's actually really good. If you think of the 5 core functions as like the skills, like these are going to need new skills and lead gen, new skills and nurture, needs new skill sales, so on and so forth. And then it's like you're putting in the work, so you're putting in the time and the energy into it, and it's like focused in the areas that you need to focus on to, like, so you're focusing in on the lead gen, you're not squirreling over and something that is not effective. And then, so those are like the top end of the equation. And then you can start clearing out all the allergies and addictions that's essentially dividing, because if you think of it as like a problem, it's like dividing by the allergies and addictions. So you're clearing out the allergies and the addictions. So then your skills and your work and your focus can be more effective.
This is like a full loop back around to like the whole integrity thing that we started with. Because really, it's like you're looking for integrity in like those 5 pillars. And then within those, you're looking for integrity with myself, right? Like everywhere where I have an addiction or everywhere where I have the allergy or addiction, it's also where I'm not in integrity with myself, right? And I love that because, like, in many ways, even when I do my coaching or when I'm coaching like entrepreneurs on this podcast, in the back of my head, and I might have said it explicitly in different ways, but it's like the skills is what triggers the inner lack of integrity, right? So like if I have skills here and I've invested in this, like I have a client recently that just signed on, but she was like, I invested up like $25,000 in sales coaching. Right? It's like I know all the scripts, I know all the things, and like I still cannot make like all of this stuff work. And then just like we started recently and just diving into a little bit more of this stuff, like there is a lot of pent up trauma for her around just like I cannot be somebody who is okay. Like I cannot have that confidence. I cannot have that certainty in my skills and in the value that I bring to the world. I'm like, well, if that's not there, all the rest, like you can have all of the skills and it's never going to land because you're never going to deliver them in a way that's actually like conducive to what the other person want, which is that they want the certainty as well that you can deliver on the thing that you're going to say. So, I mean, I know I'm just kind of like repeating the same thing you guys are saying, and I love how these things like line up and align. So if anything else you want to add to that, by all means.
No, I think that's a complete thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So
I love how all it comes together.
yeah, for sure. Okay. So one of the other questions I had for you guys was around this whole deserving idea, right? Because we will get into these guilt and shame spirals around, okay, well, even though I want this thing, fundamentally, I don't think like I deserve it. And I think when I was reading your background, there was a lot of moments where you were like, I don't even know if this is like possible for me. I know I want stuff, but like I don't deserve it. So I'm just curious, how did you guys get over that deserving hump or chapter of your life?
I feel like this was a bigger thing for me, that enough conversation has always been huge. I before like just building our business, I come from a lot of trauma. Like I was on my own on the streets at 15. I've been in a human trafficking ring. My charger's right there if you want to grab it. There was a lot of stuff that I had to go through. I worked with an expert in trauma. We did a lot of hypnotherapy. We did a lot of inner child work.
I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't. I really, so there's a thing, we call it to be the buffalo. And we really took this on. So the buffalo, when a storm comes, they run towards the storm so that they can get through the storm faster. Where the cow will run away from the storm to stay safe. I knew that my not enoughness and my trauma was getting in the way, and I was constantly sabotaging myself. So I found the people that I needed to work with to heal the trauma and to go through it. Even to this day, 3 years later, we both work with an angelic shaman on a weekly basis, 1-to-1, working through whatever that spiritual space is. It has been a journey. And our first year together, we worked directly on the worthiness piece, where I really got how worthy and loved that I am. And then the next year was like, okay, now that I got my worth, it's all about embodying it. How am I taking it and embodying this work? And now, year 3 is all about the leadership and the wisdom. How can I bring other people up in this mountain? So I think that's a really loaded question. I think if there's really a lot of trauma that you've gone through, I hope that nobody we all have our own traumas, but to find someone who specializes in it and don't feel like you have to do it alone. That can be a biggie, especially some of the, I needed professional help, and I went and I got it.
No, absolutely. And I think especially if there's a lot of shame pieces to that, I think it's extremely hard to work through your own shame. So 110% in agreement with that. You had mentioned also like, okay, so I worked in this container to kind of get the deservingness, and then I embodied it like the second year. So whenever I talk about embodiment, even in my work, kind of the simple filter that I use to just explain it in the moment is like thinking, feeling, and acting in alignment with like the thing that you want. Like that is like the embodiment of, at least that I strive for with my clients. I'm just curious, like, how do you guys see it, both in your personal and then in like embodying the coach that you want to be that makes whatever X amount of
I
dollars?
love your definition. To be honest, I'm like, are you being it? Are you thinking it? It's like, it's not just saying the pretty words that everyone wants to hear. It's the things that you do when nobody is watching. Like, are you truly being that person say that you are? Kind of goes back to the integrity.
Yeah, I want to step back in the shame stuff, because I went through a lot of the shame stuff. And it's funny, I went to go schedule something with Alex Sharfin recommended EDMR therapy. And I looked for an EDMR therapist around us, and literally they were like 3 months out booked. And I'm like, that's freaking ridiculous. And I'm like, I'm going to just Google how to do this and see what the hell. And so I Googled how to do EDMR, and there was a video literally walking people through some eye movements and like kind of how to do it. And then I was like, okay, but this is the thing. How everybody uses EDMR is you come in with a trauma, they walk through, they trigger the trauma, and then they do the eye movement or the body tapping or whatever to clear the trauma. And I'm like, most of the time, we don't freaking know what the trauma is. We know that there's some sort of body sensation, there's some sort of trigger, there's some sort of whatever, there's a shame, there's whatever. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it came from the same crap that, happened or whatever, but who knows? And then we learned something called neuro-emotional technique, which is NET. Back in the day, and that
back in healing seizures.
Back in the healing seizures day. And that was super amazing. I remember the first time I ever did a session, I had a ton of back pain, and it walked me through it, and I had like no back pain for like a few weeks. Hallie didn't like, she ended up having no seizures for 2 days, where she was having multiple ones in a day. It was really powerful. So I was like, okay. So there's the EDMR and the eye movement, and then the thing and all of this, and then there's the neuro-emotional technique, which I don't like. It's great, but the way that they do it is you got to have a pain. You bring a pain to the thing, and then they muscle test and see what emotion's stuck in the body, and then they clear it. I'm like, but if I don't have a pain, what if it's just an emotional, like, I know that there's a thing there. So I'm like, let's put both of these together, and we created something called quantum rapid shifting that literally, like, Holly would go to Ohio to see her family, and I would spend the whole freaking weekend just freaking doing eye movements and tapping and releasing. And I was just like screaming in the shower and crying and doing all the work, like, and getting through so much shame, so much guilt, so much everything. And it's just it's just been so powerful, like being able to. And so now with that, sometimes I use that, sometimes I use the because I'm getting, I'm in that program too. And so depending on where I feel like it is, or maybe I don't have my hands, so I can't tap and do the breathing or whatever. So I do the eye movements or whatever. So it's like whatever I feel like is useful at the time to clear out any of that crap. It's really powerful.
So I love that you shared that, because it's not a stark contrast between, like, I recommend you do some, like, go to somebody to heal a lot of this stuff, and then it's like, well, okay, you can also like do a lot of it yourself. And it's been very, like, that's been same in my experience as well, where like when my studio imploded, honestly, I didn't have the money to spend for a lot of healers. So I had to, like, same thing, like, figure out how do you, like, well, what went wrong? How do I heal all this stuff? And one of the main modalities that helped me was like internal family systems and parts work. And it's something that I still use even in my own coaching. But for me, it was so, like, for me personally, I have this like rule of 100. Like, if there's something that works, I want to do it 100 times before like I apply or like try something new. So for me, before I started even doing it with clients, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do 100 like self, like, parts work sessions on myself. And then I'll try it out with other people. And that's worked extremely well for like pretty much all the techniques that I've learned to work with clients. And the reason that I bring this up is because, like, one of the things I generally have done is, like, I've had to turn away a lot of coaches that are not established yet, just because it doesn't financially make sense for them to work. It was kind of like that whole skills conversation. Like, I think you need to get the skills to get to this level, and then we can handle this part first. And the reason that I'm asking this question is, like, for those coaches that are, say, in that position where it's like, I'd like to work with somebody, but I can't, I need to make enough progress to get there. And I'm trying to learn the skills, but all of this stuff is kind of coming in the way. Like, all of this inner drama is coming in the way. How would you recommend they go about, let's just say, if we're going to isolate the deservingness or the shame piece, like, what are ways that they could utilize these self techniques to just get them over that first hump, and then we kind of accelerate from there?
Yeah, we did a training where we go through our model, right? We have it broken down into 9 different applicators, and it's like, and it's a little bit older now. We've updated our model, but
My hair is a different color.
yeah. And we did the quantum rapid shifting. We didn't have the cellular alignment at the time. We go through, okay, so what's the thing that's in the way of you just feeling super down and create that really tight messaging? And then we had them like assess, like, okay, what is that? And like on a 1 to 10 scale. And then we had them do the clearing, and a lot of stuff came up for that, because it's like, it's actually dealing with the work that we do in our business and how we help our clients. And we've had clients, we had one person go through it, didn't even join our coaching, was doing like maybe $1,000, $2,000 a month, end up having a $10,000 month. We had one client that, like, she was so uptight and like, not, like, we're just worried about what people are going to say. And now she has like 70,000 followers on TikTok or something, and is now attracting all of her clients that way. And now she's been working with us for a year or so. So, but she had to go through that first.
So I guess what I would say there is, like, YouTube can be a great resource, but the reason why the eye movements work so well is, like, literally, so what you're doing is you're activating your vagus nerve, and your eyes are connected with a lot of memories. So what we're doing is activating the vagus nerve, which activates the parasympathetic. I'm gonna get super nerdy here. Activates the parasympathetic nerve, which then neutralizes the charge of the energy. And if you can neutralize the charge of the trigger, and from nothing we can create everything, right? So I did go, because I had some pretty intense traumas. That's why I needed, like, at that point I needed a professional. It was part of the underlyings of why I was having the seizures. And then I started getting the tools of, like, okay, I'm good now. Like, I work with my shaman because he's freaking amazing, and like, I just know that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Like, I'm like, actually, I told him, I'm like, I'm going to be your client as long as you have me, pretty much, because it's really powerful work with him. But that's why the rapid eye movement. So ultimately, it's like taking your thumb and like moving it as fast as you need to. Everyone is different with this. And then ultimately your control deleting your body is kind of how I put it, is like there's meridian points in your wrist and in your forehead, and like through breath work can also be a really powerful tool to release a lot of this as well. So that's what I would say. I would just go do some research. The vagal nerve, the body code, those kind of things can be a really powerful place to start.
Awesome. Love all of that. So yeah, I think I mean, those are all the questions that I've had, and I want to be like conscious of time. So I guess one final one, just to be clear for everybody listening. So when you guys do your programs, like, so there's kind of like this inner component, and then there's also like the marketing and sales component that are combined. That's what people would get.
Yep.
Okay.
It is. We take a very holistic approach. I don't believe in just all tactic and strategy, because that's not going to get you the results that you want.
Yeah, it's really about creating that client attraction system, packaging the program, and then creating the enrollment system, and then also
getting yourself out of the way.
Yeah, it's like getting yourself out of the way. Really, the capacity, being able to handle more, being able to the performance of being able to, just kind of move on that higher level and being able to handle more and get more done.
Love it. Well, I want to make sure we just kind of begin to move into a close so that we're good for time. So yeah, I mean, normally I just like, let everybody know, who's the best person to find you, where they can find you, or anything else you want to add about the magnificent work that you guys do. Floor is yours for all that.
Yeah, so I would love to invite you guys to join us we have a Facebook group, the Coaches for Transformation Collective. We're a movement of coaches who are really out to transform the world. I believe we can lift each other up and do it together. So we have that. We have a podcast ourselves, the Called Coach podcast. You can find us on there, or look both of us up on the interwebs. Huh?
Yep.
Say anywhere else? I think that's good.
Awesome. Well, as always, we'll include that in the show notes. So yeah, listen, thank you guys. This was it was a refreshing thing for me to like dive into this in a totally different way. And I love how aligned a lot of things are. I love how like I have a different perspective on certain things. So yeah, thank you guys for coming.
You're welcome.
This was an amazing conversation. Thanks for breaking the rules and having us do it.
It's one of my favorite things to do. So you're very welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.